Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The night skies over Kethel Prime often glowed with the aurora of ion storms. But tonight, they were lit by the dragging ember of a human vessel incarnate in flame. Zach Sylvan, barely conscious, clutched at the control panel as the navigation systems flared in protest. Every shudder of the hull felt like the last, each pained groan echoing through the cramped cockpit. Outside the reinforced viewport, the horizon seemed to tilt under the weight of gravity, forcing drops of condensed coolant to slide idly across the glass. He wiped a hand over his brow, tasting the dust that seeped through a fissure in the sealing unit. With a final lurch, the ship tore through the charred atmosphere, scattering sparks across the barren plains before collapsing in a crater of fire and smoke. When the heat's roar subsided to a low hiss, Zach forced his eyelids open. The world tilted at a cruel angle, and his ribs complained with every breath. Manual overrides blinked red, oxygen low, structural integrity compromised, life support failing. He forced a groan, fighting vertigo, and activated the distress beacon. The signal's pulse cracked through static, unheard by any ally. But he had no choice. Somewhere beyond those rust-colored dunes, life or death awaited. Gears trembled beneath him as he managed to unlatch his harness. His legs, trembling like newborn saplings, bore his weight as he stumbled toward the hatch. Outside, the air burned his lungs with a swirl of acrid smoke and metallic tang. He coughed, vision blurring, but managed to flip open the external panel. His hands fumbled over the release lever, and the hatch fell away with a pneumatic sigh. A plume of steam billowed out, revealing the alien sky, bruised violet clouds racing overhead, fractured by jagged lightning forks. Beneath it, the desolate plain spread to the horizon, interspersed with tall, crystalline spires that glimmered like distant beacons. Zach staggered onto the charred ground, leaving bloody footprints in the crimson dust. Meanwhile, several kilometers away, Dina Usra crouched behind a cluster of basalt outcroppings, her senses prickling. As a scout for the Kethali Crown, she was attuned to disturbances in the planet's biosphere, and tonight something new pulsed through the ground. The seismic signature was faint but unmistakably artificial. She tapped her wrist console, sending silent coordinates to Commander Rogel's patrol. Then, drawing her energy blade, she slipped toward the crash site under the cloak of swirling dust devils, each step measured against the flicker of distant flames. Dina approached the crater's rim, her violet irises reflecting the dying glow of Zach's vessel. She raised a scanner, her breath steady. Non-Kethali life form detected, her device announced in clipped tones. She exhaled slowly, recalling her orders. Recover any alien artifacts, neutralize any threats, report to the Citadel. But as she peered over the edge, she saw not a weapon but a lone human, gaunt and vulnerable, dragging himself free of twisted metal. Suspicion warred with curiosity. This human might hold the key to something far greater than any relic. Zach, shivering in the cold night wind, slumped onto one knee. He pressed a trembling hand to the ground, feeling the faint thrum of dormant energy beneath his palm. Something about this world resonated with him, a memory half forgot. He blinked, trying to focus, only to find the scene before him distorted by pain and exhaustion. Then he sensed the presence behind him, a silhouette against the burning wreck. He turned, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not armed," he croaked. "Please help me." Dina watched the human's chest rise and fall, nodding the irregular rhythm of his breathing. She crouched beside him, keeping the blade at her side but ready. "You'll need to come with me," she said in a low voice. "You're on Kethel Prime without permission. The Queen will want answers." Zach nodded weakly, sliding an arm around a fragment of the hull to haul himself upright. She half carried, half guided him away from the wreck, careful to avoid the heat pockets in the sand that glowed like embers. As they traversed the jagged plains, Zach studied Dina's armor, sleek obsidian plates etched with silver filigree bearing the emblem of a coiling serpent. He wondered what role he'd unwittingly stumbled into. Were the Kethali invaders or refugees from some ancient conflict? The stars above winked through the storm clouds, a silent jury to his plight. Back at the Citadel's outer walls, Queen Velaketh reclined upon her crystalline throne, her gaze fixed on the constellation beyond. Rumors of a human's arrival had reached her ears, whispered by loyal couriers. She traced a finger through the air, guiding a holographic simulation of the crash site. "Bring me the survivor," she commanded, her voice a cool draft that silenced the chamber. "And ensure no one else learns of his presence." At her side stood Commander Rogel, expression unreadable behind his mask. "At once, Your Majesty." Dina breached the Citadel's perimeter under the cover of darkness, bearing her captive across gleaming corridors carved from living rock. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, illuminating frescoes of Cathali conquest. Zack's boots clicked uncertainly on the polished floor as he followed her, each echo a reminder of his fragile position. He glanced at the guards who bowed their heads in deference and realized with a jolt that he was a curiosity here, a specimen to be studied. They reached an observation chamber where Professor Corintala awaited, his hair a tangle of silver and ash. He adjusted his goggles, peering at Zack's shuttle's data core. "Fascinating," he murmured, voice tinged with reverence. "Your vessel's energy signature aligns with legends of the empathic conduit. You might be the key to unlocking Cathali supremacy." Zack recoiled, confusion flaring in his chest. "I'm just a pilot," he protested, voice cracking. But in the corner, Dina's eyes softened. She placed a cautious hand on Zack's arm. "We'll figure this out," she whispered, "but first we must keep you safe from those who would exploit you." Alone in a sterile enclave, Zack sank onto a cot, mind racing. Flashes of distant memories tugged at him, moments of inexplicable connection, tears he shed at tragedies he never witnessed, strategies he foresaw before they happened. He pressed a palm to his temple, and the chamber's lights flickered. Alarms blared as sensors registered a surge in his biofield. Professor Tala and Commander Rogel burst in, their faces masks of solemn triumph. Queen Velaketh's command resonated. The human was awakening. As the walls closed in, Zack met Dina's gaze with newfound resolve. "I don't want to be a weapon," he said quietly, "but if my power can save lives, then I'll fight." Outside, the alien night raged on, and somewhere beyond those walls, the first sparks of rebellion kindled in the hearts of those who believed that even the smallest life could change an empire's fate. Dina Usra led Zack Sylvan through a hidden service corridor beneath the Citadel's glittering facade, the walls pulsing softly with bioluminescent filaments. The air here was cool and hushed, a sharp contrast to the grandeur above, and the distant thrum of the throne room's energy fields faded behind them. Zack's boots made no sound on the polished obsidian floor as he stumbled slightly, still unsteady from his wounds. Dina placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward a reinforced door engraved with ancient glyphs, marks forbidden to all but the highest scholars. She tapped a coded sequence into the panel, and with a pneumatic hiss, the door slid open. Inside stood Professor Corintala, draped in simple robes that concealed scars of exile. His pale eyes glimmered with cautious excitement as he observed Zack's stranded form. Professor Tala approached with deliberation, hands folded behind his back. "Your arrival confirms what we've long speculated," he murmured, voice soft as the distant echoes of history. He directed Dina to place Zack upon a low examination table carved from living crystal. Marin Velo, the archive sentinel, stood nearby, her expression unreadable. She wore the sable armor of the Guard Corps, but her lateral gaze betrayed a fierce loyalty to knowledge over politics. With careful precision, Corintala secured gentle restraints around Zack's wrists and ankles, restraints designed to monitor biofield fluctuations rather than harm the subject. He bent low to inspect Zack's vitals through a handheld scanner, the device's blue glow dancing across his sharp features. The central archives lay beyond a second set of doors, their surfaces inlaid with strips of luminescent quartz. Dina, Zack, and Professor Tala passed beneath towering shelves that arched toward the vaulted ceiling, each shelf stacked with crystalline codices and papyrus-like scrolls. Marin Velo followed at a measured distance, activating hovering drones that recorded their passage. The lamps overhead cast fractured prisms of light across the floor, illuminating dusty motes that drifted like tiny specters. Professor Tala paused before an alcove, placing a gloved hand upon a scroll case etched with serpent-winged motifs. "This is the glyph we must interpret," he whispered, as Dina unclasped the case and revealed a brittle parchment covered in swirling script. The glyph before them pulsed with faint energy, as though alive. Delicate lines and arcs wove together to form an image of interlaced hearts surrounded by concentric rings. Professor Tala adjusted his goggles and traced each stroke with trembling fingers. "Translation tentative," he said, voice hushed. "When the foreign heart awakens beneath the Selenian moons, the chains of stars shall break at its touch." His words echoed in the cavernous hall. Zack leaned forward, a tremor in his chest. Prophecy spoke of him. The empathic resonance he'd only just sensed during the crash seemed tied to this ancient verse. Dina exchanged a quick glance with Marin Velo, whose jaw clenched at the implication that a single human could shatter millennia of Cathali control. As Corintala spoke, the chamber doors slid open once more to admit a figure draped in military regalia, General Mala Keth, estranged sister of Queen Vela. Mala's posture was regal, yet her eyes betrayed compassion. She moved toward them without hesitation, stopping just short of touching the glyph. "You summoned me," she said, tone steady but urgent. Her gaze flicked to Dina, then to the scroll. If this prophecy is genuine, then the Queen's plan to weaponize him could tear the Empire apart. Dina inclined her head, relief mingling with worry. "We need your authority, General. We lack the clearance to act openly." Marinvilo drew in a breath. "My orders were to catalog relics, not facilitate insurrection." Mala rested a hand on the sentinel's shoulder. "Sometimes loyalty must bend for the greater good." Beneath the ambient glow of the archive lamps, Mala addressed Zack directly. "You are more than a captive. The power within you, what the prophecy calls the foreign heart, can end the Queen's tyranny. Will you stand with us?" Zack swallowed hard, memories of loss and duty surfacing. "If it spares innocent lives, then I'll help." His voice, though quiet, resonated through the hall as if stirring the glyph itself. Professor Tala stepped back, his gaze aflame with scholarly reverence. "The Selenian moons mentioned here orbit a hidden moon beneath the citadel," he explained. "Legend holds that its tunnels house a device known as the resonance key, a crystalline conductor that amplifies empathic energy into a focused beam." Mala's lips curved in determination. "The Queen has already dispatched research teams to secure that key for her arsenal. We must beat her there." Dina activated her wrist console, projecting a holographic map of the citadel's underlevels. Corridors stretched like roots into the depths, converging on a sealed vault marked with the emblem of two entwined serpents. Footsteps rang suddenly in the hallway beyond. Marinvilo's eyes snapped toward the door. "We've overstayed our clearance window." Mala produced a slender badge from inside her cloak. Flashing it briefly silenced the approaching guards. Two armored figures paused at the threshold, offering curt nods before slipping away. Once they disappeared, Mala released the exhale she'd been holding. "We must retrieve the resonance key before the Queen's scientists finish her weapon prototype." Professor Tala gathered the glyph and rolled it carefully. Dina and Marin slipped the scroll into a secure case, sealing it with biofactor locks keyed to Mala's genetic signature. With the artifact stowed, they moved as one toward a secondary exit, a narrow shaft leading to the citadel core. Professor Tala stumbled slightly over the uneven floor, his robe snagging on protruding quartz. Dina reached for his elbow. "Steady," she murmured. He nodded, shaking off a twinge of doubt. "Knowledge must endure even if the archive falls," he replied. Zack led the way, his perceptive senses guiding them toward faint hums of power conduits. Marinvilo hovered a wrist drone overhead, its sensors probing for patrols. As they descended, the temperature rose, and the walls shifted from crystalline hallways to cold metal plating. Emergency red lights flickered along the corridor, indicating recent maintenance. Mala placed her hand on a security panel, overriding its protocols with a genetic override. The blast door slid open to reveal a spiral ramp descending into darkness. A distant blue glow pulsed at the bottom. Surely the resonance vault awaited beyond. Dina's grip tightened on her energy blade white under the strobing lights. Zack paused on the ramp, breathing deeply. "I can feel it," he said, voice taut with anticipation. "The key is close." Professor Tala knelt to place an enchanted sensor on the floor, which emitted a tone that quickened as they advanced. Marinvilo kept watch, her stance rigid. General Mala placed a reassuring hand on Zack's shoulder. "We're nearly there," she said, though worry darkened her eyes. "Once we secure the key, we'll need to decide whether to use it to amplify your resonance or destroy it entirely." Dina exhaled, recalling Queen Vela's final words before dispatching her most loyal guards. "If the archives are ever compromised, purge the conspirators with fire." The thought sharpened her resolve. "We must move swiftly," she urged. Together, the improbable band, human, scout, scholar, sentinel, and renegade general, pressed onward into the citadel's hidden heart, where the Queen's darkest secret awaited discovery. The resonance vault door closed with a low thrum. Dina Usra stood before a lattice of crystalline conduits, their pale light shimmering across her armor. Zack Sylvan felt the vibrations beneath his boots, an echo of the energy they sought to control. Professor Corintala's voice crackled through Dina's earpiece as he navigated the final security overrides back in the archive. General Malaketh's warning rang in Dina's mind. Secure the key, then depart at once. But they needed allies, contacts beyond the palace walls. The resistance within Kethel Prime was fractured, and their only hope lay with those who operated in shadows, the black market smuggler Juno Mara. Juno Mara's den lay in the bowels of Kethel City's old spice district, a warren of narrow alleys and neon-lit stalls vending contraband. News of a human's empathic resonance had reached her ears, carried by whispers and coded messages. She watched from the shadowed doorway as Dina and Zack arrived, flanked by Marin Velo. Juno's wiry frame shifted as she slipped into the open, revealing a mechanical arm of brass and worn plating. Her eyes gleamed with opportunistic fire. "I hear you're looking for a way to topple the queen," she rasped, voice gravelly but confident. Zack met her gaze, uncertain if she was trap or savior. Dina moved first, laying out the plan to seize the resonance key before it fell into the wrong hands. Juno inspected a hollow projection of the vault schematics. "These palace guards don't come cheap," she warned. "I'll help you only if you deliver me something far more valuable than credits." Dina stiffened. "We only have the resonance key, nothing else." Juno's lip curled. "Then that is payment enough." With Juno's grudging approval, the small party slipped through the Spice District's composite gates into the underlevels. Beneath the city's glittering towers lay the forgotten catacombs of Kethel Prime, a labyrinth of damp corridors and rusted service shafts. Dina led the way, using stolen access codes to disable patrol sensors. After kilometers of winding tunnels, they arrived at a sealed maintenance hatch. Juno tapped a clandestine frequency. The hatch slid open to reveal Apex Soul's workshop, half machinery, half sanctuary. The rogue engineer emerged from a haze of sparks, goggles pushed atop his head, tattoos of circuit patterns trailing down his arms. "Heard you need someone who can talk to metal," he said, voice playful. "I'm your conduit." Inside Apex Soul's workshop, walls lined with salvaged drone parts and experimental cores, he examined the resonance key. Its crystalline structure pulsed with a soft lilac glow. Apex tapped wires into a portable scanner. "The Queen's infernal laboratories lie beneath the mountain's heart," he explained, voice low. "They're weaponizing empathic energy to forge a Starbreaker cannon." Shock rippled through Zack and Dina. Juno clenched her mechanical hand. "That's not just a weapon, it's an extinction engine." As Apex traced the lab's schematics, sensors pinged, security sweeps had discovered their absence. Red lights flared. Without hesitation, Apex triggered an electromagnetic pulse that blacked out nearby cameras. "Move," he urged. The Allies dashed into intertwining tunnels as alarms wailed behind them. Hours later, beyond the city's subterranean blast shields, they reached a hidden safe house carved into volcanic stone. Smoke tendrils curled from an iron brazier and maps dotted the walls like constellations. Rasha Trenna waited, her stance unwavering beneath flickering torchlight. The human resistance envoy exuded quiet authority, her dark hair braided with silver threads, eyes like emerald shards. "We've been watching," she said, voice calm. "Your plan reverberates across every cell we've built." She gestured toward a table strewn with intel, troop movements, supply routes, secret rendezvous. Dina scanned the documents. The resistance network was deeper than she imagined. Juno and Apex exchanged glances. Rasha laid out a map, the path to the infernal labs, the weak points in the Queen's defenses, and the route to deliver the key to the vault of Selenian moons. In the hush of the safe house, the unlikely council formed. Malekith's silenced warnings echoed in Dina's mind. One wrong step and they'd be ash. Rasha spoke first. "We stage a diversion at the southern perimeter. Juno's contacts will smuggle reinforcements through the spice vaults. Apex will override the lab's power grid. Dina and I will extract the key. Zack, your resonance can blind their sensors. Buy us seconds." Juno sneered. "You want me to risk my cargo, my crew?" Rasha met her gaze. "We free this world, your profit follows." Juno's mechanical fingers tapped the table. "If this succeeds, we'll all get what we want." Beneath the torch's glow, an alliance was sealed in resolve and desperation. As they finalized coordinates, tension wound tight. Dina watched Zack pace, eyes flickering with doubt. "You're scared," she said softly. He halted, shoulders slumping. "I've never hurt anyone intentionally. What if this power destroys me?" Rasher approached, laying a hand on his arm. "Your gift is a beacon, not a blight. With control, it can tip the scales." Apex offered a half-smile. "I build machines that kill. If your power can stop that, it's worth the gamble." Juno leaned back, mask shifting in torchlight. "Trust is currency I've spent before, but I believe in self-preservation." The group shared a weary chuckle. In that fleeting moment, strangers bound by fate became comrades. Night had fallen anew as they emerged from the safe house. The mountains, silhouette loomed, crowned with the Queen's sentry towers. Juno guided a convoy of cloaked transports through winding roads, their crimson paint blending with the volcanic soil. Apex rode beside the first vehicle, hacking security relays with a handheld console. Patrolling drones buzzed overhead, scanning for movement. Dina crouched behind the engine, her blade humming faintly. Rasha signaled silence with a raised hand. Zack steadied his breath, closing his eyes. He felt the drone's electric hum entwine with his heartbeat. With a whispered word, he released a pulse of empathy, muddling the drone's circuits. They shuddered, then drifted toward the mountain's edge, giving the convoy passage beneath starlit skies. They reached a yawning fissure carved into basalt, the infernal lab's entrance. Molten veins of metal oozed along its rim, casting flickering orange light. Armed sentries on catwalks loomed above, their armor reflecting the molten glow. Juno signaled for silence. The convoy's doors opened. Rasha led the way through the catacombs, where dripping water hissed on heated plates. The lab's lower levels smelled of sulfur and ozone, proof of experiments gone awry. Apex tapped into a service hatch, scanning entry codes. Dina held her blade ready, while Zach's aura thrummed like a caged storm. At the final blast door, Rasha knelt to insert an encrypted key. The door groaned open, revealing halls of glass chambers and machinery humming with lethal promise. Inside, scientists in biosuits monitored subjects writhing in stasis fields, aliens and humans bound side by side. Tubes channeled empathic energy into a core that pulsed with destructive intent. The Queen's voice echoed over speakers. "Weaponize the heart's power." Dina's stomach churned at the sight. Zach's chest flared with anguish, his empathy responding to every cry of fear. He staggered, hand over his heart. Rasha steadied him. "Focus," she whispered, but his power overwhelmed the controls. Lights flickered, containment fields wavered. A low hum rose to a roar as Zach's resonance surged outward. Machinery sparked and shattered. The labs trembled like a wounded beast as his hidden potential broke free. As alarms blared, Apex and Juno dashed for the control podium. Apex jammed override codes into the console, while Juno yanked data drives from terminals. Rasha rushed to the vault chamber, where the resonance key lay on a pedestal of plating. Dina covered her flank, slicing through security turrets with her blade. Zach, breath ragged, focused his empathy to shore up the vault's shielding, preventing an overload. Sparks danced around the pedestal as the key glowed brighter. Juno secured the drives. "Got it," she shouted, tossing them into a satchel. Rasha lifted the key, its cool surface pulsing against her palm. The objective was achieved, but their escape lay through fire and collapsing steel. The infernal labs groaned under the strain as power conduits overloaded. The blast doors began sealing with molten seals. Dina yelled, "Move!" They sprinted down the corridor as Apex hacked the door controls, buying seconds. Behind them, flames exploded in arcs of blue and orange, consuming control rooms in incandescent fury. Zach's resonance flared to shatter blocked passages, collapsing walls to clear an escape route. Rasha and Juno led the way, weaving through falling debris. At last, they burst into the open air, lungs burning with ash-laden wind. They pressed on toward the convoy, where Apex unleashed another pulse to bring down pursuing drones. The convoy waited amidst a field of blackened rock. Juno's transports roared to life, engines bucking under their sacred cargo. Rasha secured the key in a reinforced containment module, its crystalline glow a beacon in the smoke. Dina slumped against the hull, exhaustion etched on her face. Zach staggered toward her, his aura dimmed but steady. "We have it," he whispered, voice thick. Juno clapped him on the back, metal arm clanking. "Not bad for a human." Apex volunteered to pilot the lead transport, weaving through debris-strewn paths. Behind them, the labs imploded with a thunderous roar, sealing the Queen's infernal weapon in molten ruin. By dawn, they reached the hidden docks beyond Kethel City. The sea breeze carried the tang of salt and freedom. Juno's sleek smuggler ship awaited beneath canvas covers. Rasha and Dina loaded supplies and secured the key in its special vault. Apex checked the engines, humming with restless energy. Zach gazed at the horizon, his power quiet but alive beneath his skin. "This alliance will shape our future," he said softly. Rasha nodded, eyes bright. "We'll bring hope to every corner of the Empire." Beneath the rising twin suns, these unlikely allies boarded the ship. Pilot, scout, engineer, smuggler, envoy, and exile, bound by a shared purpose. The ember of rebellion glowed in their hearts as they embarked on the next phase of their fight. The tunnels beneath Kethel Prime trembled with the distant thrumming of war machines. Dina Usra crouched beside the entrance to the Selenian vault, the resonance key secured in Rasha Tren's hands. Malach Keth, once loyal general, now fugitive, stood at Rasha's side, her breathing measured as she surveyed the vaulted arch ahead. Apex Sol and Juno Mara waited at the rear, loading their weapons with makeshift charges and finalizing escape routes. Zach Sylvan pressed a hand to the cool stone floor, feeling the tremor of empathic energy converging within the vault's sealed doors. "We move on my mark," Dina whispered, voice steely. "Once we unlock this door, there's no turning back." Rasha inserted the key into the crystalline lock, its lilac glow pulsing in response. Malech knelt to override the final security grid, her gauntlet-clad fingers dancing across the control panel. Sparks flickered as the ancient mechanism yielded. With a grinding sigh, the doors parted, revealing a chamber of sculpted quartz and humming conduits. At its center stood the Selenian amplifier, a towering prism of interwoven crystal and metal, designed to magnify empathic resonance into a beam capable of reshaping atmospheres. Zack's heart thundered in his ears. "This is it," he murmured, stepping into the chamber's haze of refracted light. He felt the amplifier's pull as though it beckoned him to merge his power with its core. Dina placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember our plan? We channel just enough to shatter the Queen's weapon network, then we collapse the amplifier." Apex and Juno spread out, planting charges on support pylons. Rasha moved to the console, her eyes flicking across archaic runes. Malech remained vigilant, blade at her hip, scanning for intruders. Above them, the Citadel's command hub erupted in alarms. Queen Velaketh stood upon her throne of living crystal, eyes aflame with fury. Her voice, amplified through palace loudspeakers, echoed across the planet. "Release the Starbreaker cannon!" Shards of empathic energy lanced into the sky as the Queen channeled Zack's captured resonance into her secret weapon, a canister of pure destruction perched on the tallest tower. "Send my will across the cosmos," she commanded, and the cannon's barrel gleamed like a dying star. In the vault, Rash's fingers flew over the console. "We've got a narrow window, less than 2 minutes before the cannon fires. Zack, prepare to link with the amplifier." He closed his eyes, centering himself. Every stray emotion, every whisper of pain he'd absorbed over months of turmoil coalesced into a single thread of empathy. He extended his mind toward the amplifier's crystalline core, and the chamber responded. Conduits pulsed, prisms glowed, the hum crescendoed. Suddenly, a squad of royal enforcers burst through the vault's rear entrance. Black-armored figures moved with practiced precision, energy rifles raised. Malech sprang forward, deflecting a bolt with her blade and rolling into cover. Juno crouched behind a fallen pillar, fanning twin pistols in controlled bursts. Apex triggered a smoke charge, filling the chamber with ionized haze. Dina leapt atop a conduit, her blade carving arcs through the air to hold the enforcers at bay. Zack opened his eyes, vision hazy but focused. He allowed his empathy to flow into the amplifier, feeling its power latch onto his own. A surge of luminescent energy snapped through his veins, and the prisms collected it like a lens. Rasha cried out as readings spiked. "He's sinking!" Outside, the Starbreaker cannon's charging hum wavered. The Queen's voice hissed through the speakers. "Secure the amplifier, I will not be denied." As the amplifier's glow intensified, Apex shouted, "Charges set, ready when you are." Juno's mechanical arm hummed as she primed the final detonator. Malech fought her way toward the lock mechanism on the vault door, determined to keep reinforcements out. Dina parried an enforcer's strike and thrust her blade forward, severing the man's rifle stock and sending him sprawling. "Zack, now!" Rasha's voice crackled with urgency. With a cry that echoed through the crystalline chamber, Zack unleashed a torrent of empathic resonance. The amplifier devoured the energy, then redirected it in a blinding column of refracted light that shot upward through the vault's ceiling and into the planet's crust. The ground shook violently as tectonic stress responded to the focused blast, fracturing the Earth miles above, at the Starbreaker cannon's foundation. In the Citadel's spire, the Queen staggered as the cannon's charge destabilized. Sapphire panels cracked, and power conduits overloaded in scintillating arcs. "What have you done?" she screamed. Her courtiers fled in panic as the weapon threatened to detonate prematurely. The Queen's regal composure shattered into fear as the pulse of empathic force backflowed through the conduit network, severing her control. Below, the amplifier shuddered under the strain. Rasha raced to the console, overriding safety protocols to prolong Zack's link. "I can't hold it much longer," she warned. Malech yelled, "Detonate!" Juno hesitated, finger on the trigger, then pulled. The charges detonated in a synchronous blaze, and pylons collapsed, shattering conduits and severing the amplifier from its power grid. Sparks flew as quartz shards rained down, cloaking the chamber in dust. Zack's vision blurred as the connection snapped. He collapsed to his knees, gasping, his empathic field recoiling like a wounded beast. Dina caught him, preventing him from hitting the crystalline floor. Rasha and Malech backed away as the chamber's hum died into silence. Apex guided Juno toward the exit, where guards regrouped amidst the rubble. "We need to move," he urged, voice hoarse. The group scrambled through the smoke-choked corridors, each step echoing with the collapse of the vault's support beams. Above, the Starbreaker cannon imploded in a storm of energy. Molten metal and psychic backlash ripped through the spire, sending shockwaves across the citadel and shattering windows for miles. Queen Vela Keth's throne room collapsed inward, burying the tyrant beneath a cascade of crystalline wreckage. Her final scream was swallowed by the roar of liberation that rose across Kethel Prime. Outside the citadel, the rebellion surged. Squads of resistance fighters flooded through breached walls as Juno's smuggler transports disgorged hidden armaments. Kethali citizens poured into the streets, casting off oppressive shackles as the amplified whisper of hope spread from village to valley. Dawn's twin suns rose on a world reborn, their light washing away decades of fear. In the ruins of the Selenian vault, Dina knelt beside Zack, who lay pale but breathing. Rasha placed a hand on the general's shoulder. "You kept the promise," she said softly. Malech offered a tired nod. "We honored our oath," Apex returned, wiping soot from his goggles. "The amplifier is inert. No one will weaponize empathy again." Juno slung her satchel over her shoulder. "I'll see to it that this key is locked away in the old archives, protected by every scavenger and smuggler I know." Zack's eyes fluttered open, and he managed a weak smile. "We did it." Dina brushed a strand of hair from his face. "You did," she corrected. He inhaled shakily, feeling the absence of the amplifier like a void within him. "What now?" he whispered. Rasha met his gaze, resolve bright in her eyes. "Now we rebuild in justice, in freedom." Malech surveyed the shattered vault, her expression one of cautious hope. "We must guide Kethel Prime toward balance, not revenge." Beyond the rubble, survivors gathered, some tending the wounded, others embracing loved ones. The alien sky swelled with untainted starlight, free of Queen Vela's manipulations. In that moment, Zack Sylvan understood that empathy, the power he feared most, was the very force that bound disparate souls together. The key to transformation lay not in weapons, but in shared understanding. As the first light of morning filtered into the chamber, Zack rose on unsteady legs. He extended a hand to Dina and Rasha. They clasped it in solidarity, an alliance forged by sacrifice and trust. Together with Apex, Juno, and Malech, they stepped into the new dawn. The Empire's shadows receded, replaced by the promise of unity. And beneath the twin suns, life on Kethel Prime began again, shaped not by fear or force, but by the unexpected power of the human heart.